The cab had already driven off before Hazel ever received the call. Her sister, Bridget, Music, had loaded her 3 children into the back seat, given the driver Hazel's former address, and told the kids their aunt would be Music waiting. The only problem was Hazel hadn't lived there for 8 months. And the woman who lived there now, well, fate clearly had a twisted sense of humor. It was something Hazel never could have imagined herself. If you've ever been the person in the family who's expected to drop everything, the one whose limits get ignored because it's music just this once, then you already know how this ends. Growing up, Hazel learned early that being labeled the responsible one wasn't praise. It was a life sentence. Bridget was always the reckless one, the magnetic one, the sister who broke rules and somehow never paid the price. Teachers granted her extensions. Their parents, Music, handed out second chances. Disorder trailed behind her, yet it somehow passed for confidence. Hazel was the complete opposite. She was the contingency plan, the dependable one, the sister everyone called when things, Music, fell apart. When Bridget's car died at 2 a.m., Hazel picked up. When Bridget skipped shifts at their father's hardware store, Music, Hazel stepped in. Hazel convinced herself this was simply what sisters did. Family meant being there. But being there for Bridget, Music, meant Bridget never had to mature. As adults, the pattern only intensified. Music, Bridget married a man named Troy and had 3 children in 4 years. Milo, 8 years old, and 6-year-old twins. Music, Jasmine and Jordan. They were sweet, noisy, lively kids, and Hazel loved them deeply. But loving them didn't mean signing up to be there. Unpaid, on-call parent. Music. At first, the requests were minor. An hour here, an afternoon there, then entire weekends, then extended stretches with no Music notice at all. Bridget always described it as helping family. Hazel understood what it truly meant. Free childcare, Music, whenever Bridget needed time off. No consideration, no respect for Hazel's job, her plans, or the small one-bedroom apartment she had worked so hard to afford. The breaking Music point arrived on a Thursday afternoon at Hazel's office. She was focused on a deadline when her phone vibrated. Bridget's name flashed across the screen. Music. Hazel nearly ignored it. She already knew the tone she'd hear. Bridget got straight to the point. She and Troy had secured last-minute tickets to a wine music event in Napa, important for Troy's career. Could Hazel take the kids from Friday through Sunday? For the first time in her life, Hazel said no. She didn't justify it, didn't Music soften it, didn't apologize. She simply said no. Bridget laughed as if it were a joke. Then came the guilt, then accusations of selfishness. Finally, she hung up. Hazel felt the usual wave of guilt rise, but she pushed it down. She had said no, and she meant it. On Friday evening, Music. Hazel left work early to prepare for a date. She was genuinely looking forward to it. She was halfway through doing her makeup when her phone rang from an unfamiliar number. It was the police. An officer, Music, informed her that 3 children had been dropped off at a home on Maple Street. The homeowner didn't recognize them and contacted authorities. The children said their aunt was supposed to be there. Hazel's stomach sank. Those were Music, Bridget's kids, she explained. But she hadn't lived at that address for 8 months. She'd moved. The officer paused, Music, then requested Bridget's contact information. After the call ended, Hazel sat motionless. Bridget had placed 3 children alone in a taxi and sent them to an address she hadn't even confirmed, after Hazel had clearly said no. That night, Hazel couldn't Music sleep. She kept picturing the kids standing on a stranger's porch. Milo gripping his sister's hands. Jasmine trying to be Music brave. Jordan asking when their aunt would arrive. If the wrong person had answered that door, if no one had called the police, Music, if anything at all had gone differently, Hazel would have carried that burden forever, even though none of it was her fault. That realization, Music, settled deep within her. The boundary she had set wasn't heartless. It was necessary. Later, Bridget called, furious. Hazel, Music, cut her off. She reminded Bridget that she had moved months ago, that she had already said no, and that sending children alone like that was dangerous. Bridget dismissed it. more irritated by the inconvenience than the risk. Music? Then she hung up. 2 days later, Hazel discovered who had moved into her former apartment. Music, her name, was Vanessa, and she worked as a social worker with Child Protective Services. Vanessa explained she was legally obligated to file a report. The police report had already raised concerns. Hazel didn't argue. She didn't plead. She didn't feel guilty. She felt relieved. The consequences came quickly. Bridget cried. Music shouted and blamed Hazel. Their parents called, urging Hazel to smooth things over and help fix, Music, everything. Hazel refused. For the first time, she didn't take responsibility for someone else's recklessness. Child Protective Services conducted welfare checks. Bridget had to complete a parenting course. She posted online portraying herself as the victim, but people began pointing out what had really happened. Music, the post was eventually deleted. A month later, Vanessa called to say the case was closed. The kids' Music were safe. Bridget had finished the required course. Before ending the call, Vanessa told Hazel something, Music, she would never forget. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary. After that, life grew quieter. Bridget, Music, stopped calling. The endless demands faded away. Months later, at a family gathering, Hazel hugged the kids, listened to their stories, and loved them just the same. But when Bridget casually asked Hazel to babysit again, Hazel smiled and said no. This time, Bridget didn't argue. She had learned. Music. Hazel once believed that family meant sacrificing yourself so everyone else could stay comfortable. She was mistaken. Real love respects boundaries. Music. It doesn't punish you for having them. And it certainly doesn't put children in taxis to force compliance. Hazel didn't orchestrate any music of this. She didn't report anyone. She didn't seek revenge. She simply said no. And the consequences were never hers to carry. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever been the one expected to bend until you Music break, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Subscribe if you believe boundaries aren't selfish, they're survival. And remember, Music, saying no to the wrong people is how you finally say yes to yourself.